Today, I'm going to discuss what my 12 years of being an advisor have taught me about retirement. If you're new to the channel, hi, I'm Julia, certified financial planner and managing director of URS Advisory. And I've been an advisor for the past 12 years. And in that time, the industry has changed drastically. That also has unfortunately led to a huge increase in retirement advice on the internet, which many of the retirees I speak to find overwhelming. And that's exactly why I'm making this video today, to show you how advice has changed and what you should be truly focusing on for your retirement plan. I want to encourage you to watch through the end of the video because I'm going to cover a few lessons that you won't find anywhere else. So let's get into it. The biggest lesson I've learned is that the true cost of retiring too late isn't money, it's time. We've all heard that the most valuable asset is time. But when it comes to retirement planning, I find that too many are focused on having enough money for success results of 90 or 100%, instead of focusing on taking advantage of their health and the time they have left. When I was studying for my certified financial planner designation, the coursework was all about, saving, investing, growing your assets, just the numbers behind retirement, the math. So when I first started, I was overly cautious and adamant that my clients had more than enough money to retire successfully, instead of making sure that they had enough money. And that's the main reason why in our practice, we're only looking for an 80% chance of success instead of 90 or 100%. Most of our clients don't want to leave giant legacies for their families. Most just want to leave whatever's left. So, dying with millions of dollars is not usually the objective. Now, there are experiences that I've had as an advisor that stick in my mind, that I think about on a weekly basis. And a few of those are around clients that retired in their late 60s, early 70s, that either got sick right after they retired or died. Just last month, our client who just retired at 70 had a stroke and now can't do the things she dreamed about doing in retirement, at least for now. And I'm certainly not saying that there aren't plenty of people that retire early and still end up sick or dying shortly after they retire. But the reality is that the older we get, the closer we are to death. And there's no reason to waste your young, healthy years working because you're afraid you don't have enough money to retire well. It's just not enough to dream about what you'll do when you retire. You have to live it. Newer financial advisors or those that follow a numbers-only approach often miss or just undervalue this important lesson. But fortunately, it does feel like most of society has embraced the idea of an earlier retirement, whether it's through the FIRE movement or part or full-time retirement in your 50s. We're all learning that time and experiences are more important than the money itself. The best way to determine if you're a candidate to retire well earlier is to hire a certified financial planner to run a proper analysis. Working as long as possible with no plan or awareness of when you can comfortably retire is just too high a price to pay. That brings me to the second lesson I've learned about retirement, which is that waiting too long to retire or to get financial guidance leads to rushed planning. So anyone who's made an important financial decision knows that it's nearly impossible to take emotion out of the equation. Even when we have all the time in the world to make a decision, it can be hard to weed out the facts from the stories that we tell ourselves. But when we're rushed to make decisions, financial or not, we're more than likely making a poor choice. And this is due to, overlooking important details, misinterpreting information, and just feeling stressed in the process. Add money to this equation, and you can quickly find yourself in trouble due to abrupt, irrevocable decisions. It's easy for us to push off planning for retirement, and then you don't even know what retirement planning really means. Of course, it's about the numbers or insurance or taxes, but it's also about your life plan, how you're going to fill your day and find that sense of purpose in your new chapter. Just last week, we met with a new client, 65 years old. He's retiring next month, and he said that he felt like he and his wife needed to get everything right this year because he's waited so long to start planning. And unfortunately, he's right. He has close to $2 million in pre-tax accounts, less than $100,000 in Roths, and just $100,000 in a brokerage account. From a tax standpoint alone, he doesn't have a lot of time, right? He's 65, or outside cash to use for Roth conversions. So he's going to be at the mercy of future tax rates with over 90% of his nest egg in pre-tax. There's just not a whole lot we can do to minimize that lifetime tax burden at this point. Also, I can't go back in time and teach him about contributing to his Roth 401k with a portion or, maxing out a health savings account to generate tax-free buckets of money. This means that he won't be able to comfortably spend as much as he probably would like to in retirement, or as much as he could if he had known those lessons. He'd also already withdrawn money from his 401k, so now he can't take advantage of a tax strategy. It's called net unrealized appreciation. So basically, he threw away tens of thousands of dollars in tax savings too. He and his wife hadn't even thought about how they filled their day once he stops working. So while we can certainly optimize his financial future, we can't undo mistakes that were made due to lack of planning. And this is why it's so important to start working with a trusted planner 3 to 5 years before you retire. This way, you can take advantage of important employer benefits, diversify your tax landscape, and have the time you need to make critical decisions with the education and the time to do it correctly. The third lesson I've learned is that most people overestimate how long they want to work. Research suggests that most people overestimate how many years they'll work in their lifetime due to a cognitive bias where we overestimate what we can achieve in the short term and underestimate long-term changes like career shifts or health events. Our brains are naturally wired to focus more on the near future, and this leads to an inflated perception of how long we can continue working at our current pace. It's hard for us to adequately consider economic changes, health events, or industry shifts that would lead to early retirement. In our own practice, the clients that we met young, right in their 40s and 50s, typically tell us that they want to retire at 65 or 67. And what we actually find is that they end up retiring years earlier on average. Mostly this is due to industry shifts, right? The person is no longer enjoying what they do, or that, or it's being decided for them. They get laid off, right? I've also seen health events force people into retirement, as well as caring for aging parents. There are so many reasons why you won't be able to work as long as you think you will. And it's important to consider that when it comes to saving for retirement. Clearly, if you're saving to be able to maintain your lifestyle upon retirement at 65 or 67, you won't have enough if you need to retire earlier. And this leads people being forced to downgrade their lifestyle in retirement. You can overcome this obstacle by simply saving as much as you can as early as possible. It goes without saying that the more you save at earlier ages, the larger your nest egg will grow, right? Compound interest. Doing that and also building a nice cash or high yield money market portion can allow you to retire earlier and still maintain your standard of living. Speaking of saving as much as possible, the fourth lesson I've learned is that catch-up contributions after age 50 get overlooked too often, or at age 50 get overlooked too often. Remember, once you're 50, you can start saving $1,000 more per year in your traditional IRA, Roth IRA, or a combination thereof. So if you're saving each year and take advantage of this catch-up at age 50, let's say it's for 12 years, right? You're retiring at 62, your average rate of return is 8%. That's an extra $20,000 of either tax-free or Roth on the side of your regular nest eggs or your 401ks and brokerage accounts. And while that may not seem like a ton of money, it can pay for several years of healthcare, a vacation, or just unexpected expenses. But the bigger mistake is not taking advantage of the 401k catch-ups. In 2025, the standard 401k contribution limit is $23,000. But if you're over 50, you can save an extra $7,500 per year. So using the same 12 years and the same 8% return, that's an extra $153,000 in your nest egg upon retirement. And if you save the catch-up in the Roth portion, you're not going to have any surprises on your tax bill because that 153 will be completely tax-free. So ask yourself, are you taking advantage of this opportunity to save more for your retirement? As humans, again, it's hard for us to look too far in the future, right? We tend to be pretty present-oriented. But if you can do your best to picture yourself in 10, 15 years, it can help motivate you to save a bit more each year to really bolster your investments for retirement. So now that you've seen the true importance of this piece of advice, the next one is especially important because I actually got an email this week from a client about this very lesson, and that is that most people wait too long to start maxing their 401ks. So aside from the catch-up, you have to max, right? Compound interest works best with time. So the earlier you start to save, the easier it is for your nest egg to grow exponentially in the years leading up to your retirement. My client, who's in her 50s, a new client, was regretting that she didn't take advantage of maxing her 401k when she was in her 40s, even though she could afford it. She wasn't focused enough on her future, right? She was distracted with life in the now. And while being present is extremely beneficial, there's a delicate balance between enjoying yourself now and protecting your future self. So let's look at what she missed out on. Here's an example of maxing out a 401k starting at age 40 versus age 50. Here are the assumptions for the age 40 scenario. They're going to save $23,000 per year between ages 40 and 50. And once they reach 50, they'll add an extra $7,500 per year. So by 50, the total contribution is $30,500. And this time, let's use a 7% rate of return to be a bit more conservative. And let's say that they retired age 65 and all contributions were made at year end. If you start at 40, by 65, you will have amassed a nest egg of over $1.6 million, and you've contributed less than $687,500. So $953,600 is just pure compound interest. And that is, the amazing part about it, right? It's very, very, very cool. So now, if you instead start saving 10 years later, right at age 50, doing that $30,500, by age 65, you'll have a nest egg of $766,600, and your total contributions will be $457,500. So instead of over $950,000 of compound interest, you'd have just over $300,000 of interest earned. Still great, but by skipping those first 10 years, you miss out on almost $500,000 in compound interest and $875,000 in total nest egg. So saving early and often is the key to taking advantage of the power of compound interest, and maxing out your 401k will get you there. Okay, so now that you've seen what years of being an advisor have taught me, you need to understand one thing. These lessons are just base guidelines for retirement planning, and the best advice is always tailored to your situation. So to help you take the next steps toward fully optimizing your retirement plan, I put together a separate video that dives deeper into everything we discussed today. In this video, I'll explain my exact system for building the retirement lifestyle you've always wanted. Just click the link below to watch it, and I'll see you next time.